name is Madison Merrill, and I will be doing my presentation over an equine production manager. This is Lily. She's been my horse for about 3 years now. So she's a quarter horse, and she's used as my barrel horse, so she travels to all the rodeos with me and does most of the work for me. She's a quarter horse. She is a red roan with a bald face. So she's definitely a looker. There's a lot of different personalities that go into being with horses. She's definitely on the more docile side, which, that's one of the things of being an equine production manager is watching the behavior of horses. And so she's extremely broke, while other horses aren't so much. She's about 8 years old, so she's at a good point in her life right now. But as far as that, horses were domesticated over 6,000 years ago. So when they were domesticated, they were used mostly for working horses and doing all the heavy lifting for farmers and soldiers and, Western expansion. They were a big part of getting us over into the West. And as far as row cropping, obviously there weren't machines back then, so most of the horses had to be used as far as, making the rows and moving most of the heavy equipment that, comes with farming and, corn and such as row crops, such like that. And then when the war got started, they, obviously helped with the Western expansion of that, but, travel expenses and all of that, horses were most of that. So, I have been around horses for, 12 years now, so I have a pretty broad experience with horses, and I've been around a lot of different ones. Like I said, she's on the docile side, but other horses aren't as docile, so I've had to learn about the different traits and qualities of horses. But she's a pretty good horse, so it helps. But part of being an equine production manager is managing around barns. And you could be in a barn that has, 5 to 10 stalls, or you could be managing over 100 horses. So you can imagine the amount that goes into maintaining the overall health of horses. With that being said, horses need vaccines every year, and that includes rabies and West Nile that controls mosquitoes and all of that. So you just want to make sure that they're healthy as far as that. Horses also need wormed close to, every 3 months. That's when I do most of my worming. But, if they don't worm, then they get itchy and they start, their coat doesn't look the same, and, they don't feel as good when they're worming. So you want to make sure and worm them. As far as feeds and such, all of that's something that you definitely have to make sure and you're watching, because all of these different horses could be, get different amounts of grain and different amounts of roughages, and you just want to make sure that they're getting the right balance in their diet. So obviously she's a big horse, so she needs a lot more food. So as far as that, obviously in the different foods there's different proteins, and obviously since she's a performance horse, she needs a big amount of protein in her diet. And when they're turned out, they don't need as much as the roughage just because they're eating that good grass. But when they're put in a stall, they're given coastal just as a filler basically, and alfalfa, just help them, give them that energy a little bit. But as far as that, then there's the training side of it. These horses, if they're a performance horse, they need ridden every day, and they need some type of exercise to, make sure that they're, just like we do, we need to go out and run and make sure that we're healthy and eating the right things. And, obviously they can't just go and do that on their own, so they need our help with that. So, she gets ridden, close to every day, just make sure that, she's up to her optimum health and not just sitting in a stall and, getting fat. But there's also the breeding side of it that has a lot of the aspects of it. She's a mare, so if I wanted to at any point, I could breed her, and she would obviously foal. But there's a lot that goes into the breeding side of it. There's obviously There's embryo transfer, which is where they take another mare's embryos and stick them in a recipient mare, and that helps get the good bloodlines of it. Breeding is a huge field. I mean, obviously the racehorse industry is huge just because of, you want the bloodlines of, say, Secretariat or something like that. She has pretty good bloodlines, so she's pretty much made to run and have a good mind. That's all part of the breeding, is having a good mindset. You want a horse that obviously isn't crazy, so you're going to pick the right horses that go with each other. But, you know, obviously the looks help too. So, obviously if a horse looks good, you're going to want to breed it more, and that's why, you know, horses like Secretariat, they did well, and so they went far in the breeding side of it, and the owners made a lot of their money back just by breeding the horse. So, like I said, another part of being around horses is watching the behavior of them and making sure they're okay. Colic is one of the biggest problems in horses, so you obviously need to watch and make sure that your horse is eating and not laying down and rolling around and swishing their tail. So when you're an equine production manager, like, that's something you have to watch, is making sure your horse is okay and not, obviously, not feeling good, because, I mean, they can't tell us, so they just have to show us, and that's how they show us. But as far as the behavior side of it, you just, you know, you want their ears perked up, and so they're feeling good and, you know, feeling their best. You know, it's not one of the most highest paying jobs out there, but an equine production manager does make around $33,000 a year. With that being said, there's a lot of different jobs that can go into it. You know, the educational requirements is you can get your associate's degree, or you can get an equine certification, which is what I'm going to school to get. With getting this equine certification, you could go into being something such as a vet tech, or a horse physical therapy, or you know, horse breeding. There's those specific fields that you can go into as far as that. You obviously need to have a really high experience with being around horses if you're going to manage these horses, because you need to know what the different behaviors mean of a horse, and, you know, to make sure they're okay and make sure you're safe around being around them, because they are large animals and they can cause damage to you. Horses are either a working horse or a companion horse, which, I mean, mine's kind of both just because I have such a love for them, but, you know, she does have a job, and she knows her job to go out there and compete, but as you can see, she's a pretty sweet horse, so she's also the companion side of it. So when you're around horses and being an equine production manager, like, you're going to get attached to those certain horses that make you want to be around them, and, you know, the different sides of it. But, you know, they are very large animals. I think she's 1250 on her pounds, so she's extremely large. So, you know, if she's uncomfortable in a situation, you're going to have to watch out for those certain signs to make sure you're safe and she's kept safe. And you never know. I mean, there could be a plastic bag flying by and horses would freak out about it. You just never know. So that's why you have to watch those things. And that's kind of a negative of the job, is you can never be comfortable in a situation just because you want them to be okay, and you want yourself to be okay too. Obviously, with being around horses, there's a lot of dirty work that goes into it. I mean, you need to clean stalls, feeding. I mean, horses aren't the cleanest animals, and then you're out in the sun, so it's not, living in Texas, I mean, it's hot outside, so you're being around horses, and they're sweating, and you're sweating, and that's just all part of it. So, I mean, obviously that's not the most positive of it, but, I mean, that's kind of a negative thing. It's just having to be in the sun all the time with these big guys, but, you know, it's definitely worth it. But, you know, as far as being an equine production manager, I definitely think I chose the right field just because I love being around horses. And, you know, the overall health is a big part of it. And, you know, I have a lot of experience with it, so I want to be around them. And I love the overall health of them. And I've learned through going to school for that, just the different nutritions that they need and different proteins and roughages and all of that, and the experience, this definitely is probably the best job for me. And just the educational requirements, I love going to school for it just because I enjoy it and it's a big passion of mine. But yeah, you can see she's pretty tired of being in the video, but you know, there's a lot of positives and negatives that go into the job, and you know, I obviously love it, and it doesn't, you know, affect me being in the sun and getting dirty around them, but it's definitely a great field to go into if you love being around horses and want to make sure they're okay. But okay, thank you.